Christy, and in this video I want to talk a little bit about social media and the image that you portray, and I guess using a little bit of discernment as you move through your life in terms of what kind of image you're portraying. And this is kind of, again, in this series of videos that I am making, for my daughter or for my daughter's son. I don't have kids, but giving some of my maternal wisdom to people out there. Of course, I own schools, so I get to talk to young people all the time. And however, this is some of the things that I don't get to maybe say to them in terms of the advice I would love to give. So when we look at social media and we look at the kind of images that we are putting out there into the world concerning ourselves, there's a lot of peer pressure out there, and unfortunately, especially with the internet, anything that we do lives on the World Wide Web eternally. It is there. It's very difficult to take it down, and even if you do take it down, there's a good chance that there are some remnants of it somewhere. And another saying that I like to use is, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So people can discern a lot from an image. Doesn't mean that they're judging that image correctly, but people are going to judge you from that three-dimensional appearance that you're putting forth. So especially, and I don't care if you're a woman, a man, whatever it is, again, the things that we do in our younger days will affect the road that we can take when we, as we progress in our lifetime. So what do I mean by this? You know what, there is a lot of peer pressure to post things, to be sexy, to be very revealing online, and to be that, Instagram girl. Back in the 1930s and 20s, there was the pinups, and that was kind of risque. And now the pendulum has swung so far to the other end where it's somehow cool to take off all of your clothes and expose yourself fully online to some degree. And this tends to be the younger generation. This tends to be, high school, just out of high school. And I think the goal of this is that if you can get Instagram famous or some sort of fame online from having very beautiful edited digital photos of yourself, that there's some sort of monetary or money attached to it, or fame that comes with it. But at what cost? And this is the really important thing that you have to learn, or you have to think about, whether it is that you're getting yourself involved in something like OnlyFans or pornography or something in that way, or if it is just very risque exposed images. It really narrows your life path. You can't kind of double back from creating that persona of yourself online, because again, it's online, it's everywhere. Gone are the days when you could potentially, go and become a dancer and nobody would really know about it, and it might be whispered about behind closed doors, and then all of a sudden, you do want to become a school teacher, or you do want to go into politics, or whatever have you. That is not possible anymore with the internet. Everything that you do, first of all, is marketed online, and then second of all, exists online really for the long term. And this is why we have to be so conscious at a very young and early age as to how we are showing up in the world and what kind of image are we bringing forth. Because what you have to think of is, what are you posting up that might limit you down the road on goals that you might not even know that you have? And there's sort of two parts to this, because it doesn't just chisel you or whittle you into this kind of corner. So as a woman, and as a man too, but specifically as a woman, when we're creating images that are highly provocative, what we're advertising essentially is a lack of discretion and a lack of self-respect. And there's the other side of the coin where women will say, you know what, naked pictures of myself, or, bending over, or whatever it is, taking a picture of my back end, it's liberating. But I would question that. What about it is liberating? I always, when people have an ideology, you really have to ask questions about your own ideological views. So if you want to feel liberated, go climb a mountain, jump out of an airplane. What is liberating about taking off your clothes and showing a naked image of yourself to other people? I mean, you're a bit of an exhibitionist, and maybe being an exhibitionist is liberating, but being an exhibitionist in the sense of hypersexuality and taking off all of your clothes and posting that everywhere also is very limiting, in the sense that when we think of the way that we want to see the leaders in our communities, and leaders in business, leaders in terms of the political situation, leaders in terms of the community giving back, we don't want people that are leading our countries bending over and taking selfies in G-strings. So it's questionable. You're basically saying, okay, I want fame, I want money, which neither of those things, fame being vanity, money being greed, neither of those things are really, altruistic goals. They're not going to bring you true happiness. Nobody that, got on the fame bus or got extremely famous will tell you that it's a fun ride all of the time. Yes, it's a wild ride. Yes, there are a lot of expectations. Yes, your privacy goes out the window. All of these different things that come with it. And yeah, you'll have a lot of people that you don't know following you around, obsessed over you. But is it worth selling your morals, or is it worth selling your soul and potentially not, or closing the doors to some of the more scholastic or some of the more intelligent things that you can do with your body, mind, and spirit? Okay, and it's not that I'm fighting back against the world of, hypersexuality and, exposing everything, but I think that we need to think about it before we do it. What is the cost to the rest of our lives if we are continually exposing ourselves and showing these hyper sexualized images? First of all, from a woman's standpoint, being a woman and what I want to portray is, again, if you want to ever be in a mother role, if you want to hold a high position in any type of industry, in business, in, again, whether it be charity organizations or being a part of your local government bodies, you're not going to have access to be able to progress in these ways if you have portrayed yourself in a very sleazy manner. And if you've done it consistently with a barrage of this kind of imagery online representing yourself, you really will never be able to achieve those goals. And you don't know how you're going to feel when you're 30, when you're 40, when you're 50, when you actually might be really passionate about something and you really want to take on some sort of a platform. Once you've done some of these things that, again, degrade yourself, because again, it is, if you are exposing yourself just for a little bit of money, or again, for likes of people you don't even know, what's the value in that? And why are you doing it? Like, what is so empty inside yourself that you think that you can fill it with a bunch of people liking your photo or commenting or saying, you're hot or this or that? Like, it's not real connection. And I think that's what people have to understand. If they are lonely, if they are feeling like they need interpersonal relationships, it's not going to come from a device. It's not going to come from 10,000. And even if you can go on a platform like OnlyFans and do God knows what to earn even a good amount of money, at the end of the day, are you proud of what you're doing? Is it something that you'd want to tell your granddaughter, tell your daughter? Is it something that you'd want to show them? I mean, again, it's something that you need to ask yourself. Is exposing yourself in this way truly divine maternal behavior? I know I wouldn't want to see my mom taking off all of her clothes. I wouldn't want to see my mom gyrating in a video or, looking super sexy or suggestive. That's my mom. I want my mom to be somebody that, I can cuddle up to, I can trust, that is, again, that has an innocence but a strength within herself. I don't want to be embarrassed of the image that my mother is bringing forth. And so that's the other side of this coin, is one day you might be a mom and you're going to have to explain to your daughter why you portrayed yourself in that manner. Or even worse, maybe you're going to have this beautiful innocent daughter sitting in front of you and you don't want her getting that kind of attention, because maybe by then you've learned what kind of attention that is, and it's the wrong kind of attention. It's not loving. It's not based on a sacred divine union. When men are hitting you up because there's a picture online of you overly exposed, they're not thinking about your beautiful mind. They're not thinking about you having a good heart. They're thinking about one thing and one thing only. And if a man is thinking about that, he doesn't see you as long-term material. He sees you as a one-time thing, maybe a few times, but there's no value placed on you as the human, as the person that you are. So if you want to be respected, and if you want to create this energy of pulling in the most, the highest expression of what it means to exist in a lifetime, then there are certain immediacies that you have to forgo. And some of them are going to be posting up inappropriate pictures of yourself, even if your friends are doing it, even if it seems fun for a second or that evening to post up some wild, crazy, sexy photos, because again, you want to feel like all the other girls. You want to look as pretty as the other girls. I mean, I do understand that mentality when you're looking online and you're like, well, I can look like that. You're seeing a whole bunch of people liking that image and commenting on that image. But what I think you need to ask yourself as well about the countless beautiful images of superficial people, and I'm not saying that truly at their core they're superficial, but if that is the extent of their day, sitting around in very, very revealing clothing, taking selfies of themselves over and over, what are they bringing to the world? What positive momentum are they bringing to the world? Are they creating something from their soul? Are they bringing something forth that is a beautiful emanation of humanity? And is it going to help the world, or is it hurting the world? Is what people are posting making the world a more empty, superficial, disconnected, morally deplorable place? Because the more that we allow this to become mainstream and we say, okay, well, yes, every mother and father should be, posting their abs online and revealing everything for everybody else to see, where does it stop? You have one side of the spectrum where people are saying, okay, we don't want to see child abuse and we don't want to see, sexual abuse of young people. We have parents that are posting highly sexual imagery all the time, all day long on their social media. So then what are the children supposed to think? When mom and dad are posting up this kind of almost quasi pornographic imagery, what are we teaching the kids? We're teaching the kids that it's okay to take off all of your clothes and have no standards, and that nothing is sacred. Nothing. I mean, what is the point of even, I don't know. I just think that there is a certain point where we have to look at the landscape of what we're creating and maybe pull it back a little bit and say, some of these things do need to not be completely plastered all over social media, and that we need to push for less superficiality and more authenticity. And the only way that we can do this is with each individual coming back to themselves and saying, I don't need this kind of approval. If I'm feeling kind of down, putting up a picture that is highly edited with minimal amount of clothing so that I can get, 500 likes, does that actually solve the problem that I'm having? What is the actual problem that I'm having? Maybe I'm lonely. Maybe I want to actually have a deep conversation. Maybe I want somebody to put their phone down and look at me in the eyes and actually care about what I'm saying. But what I am doing is the absolute opposite of this. I'm creating more superficiality, and I'm wasting my time scrolling online looking for something to feed my soul. Well, it's not there. It's not there. It'll never be there. You're never going to get any deep communication, deep fulfillment from looking at a screen. And yet, this is what people are doing, and they're getting their minds so sucked into a digital world that doesn't exist that it's bending their moral code. It's taking them away from their families. It's creating a whole new type of addiction, which is, again, cyber addictions, massive addictions to pornography, to chatting online, to this unrealistic world that doesn't exist. And it's at the expense of a very real world that does exist. So again, what's the solution to this? The solution is that, like anything else, we identify the problem and then we slowly fix it. Meaning we put back on our clothes, we take photos that represent good, wholesome values, and we swing the pendulum back to a more traditional style of beauty, one which is about perhaps the activities that we're doing and not so much the cleavage we're showing, or we take pictures of having fun and smiling and true interactions, and not so much of these empty selfies, which at the end of the day, to me, scream, I'm not happy. That's why I'm posting this. I'm lonely. That's why I'm taking pictures by myself. And maybe we need to pay a little bit more attention to what our kids are doing online and get them out and about, get them into nature, have conversations with them. Stop being lazy, create a situation that's fun. A lot of times there is stagnancy within even a family dynamic where it gets easy to sit there and watch the television. And planning epic adventures at night can be a little bit of work, but it's worth it and it's fun. And when you approach your life in this way, you create beautiful memories. And I think that that's what we have to remind our human family, is that there is so much more to living than just existing online. So I'm going to wrap this video up, but the real purpose that I'm posting this video and making this video is that it might spur something, you know, within you that it's your worth and your value shouldn't be deduced to how good your selfies are or how much you can filter a picture, because even that, I mean, you can put on a million filters, but you're still going to be you. And why not just be authentically who you are? It's easier that way. And then you don't have to feel like you have, you know, in real life, you don't add up to this persona that you're putting online that, again, isn't really you. And you're getting these accolades and these likes and these followers from something that isn't really you. Just try to be you, you know, and try to figure out what that is and what that person likes and what their talents are and what their gifts are, and do that without worrying about if the world is going to approve of it, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if the world approves of you. And I can tell you 100% that when you are your authentic self, when you are your real self, that's when the rest of the world will be magnetically attracted to you anyways, in real time, in reality. So before you go and put, you know, a super sexy selfie up, or, you know, you're overly exposing yourself or putting a pose up where you are looking super sleazy or suggestive, ask what type of energy you are pulling towards yourself from that photo. If you are getting a lot of negative attention, or, you know, maybe you're attracting the wrong kind of guys or the wrong kind of girls because of what you're posting, again, it's all the law of attraction. What you put out will draw that kind of attention back to you. So you need to be super careful about what you're attracting. And again, the whole goal is joy. You want to create the most beautiful, joyful unfoldment of your life, and you never want to limit your future potentials and your future timelines. And when you are posting images of yourself that might not portray you in the beautiful, sacred energy that you truly were created in, you're going to limit the possibilities that will come your way. So again, just a little bit of advice from this old lady. Hopefully you find it helpful. If you don't, it is what it is. It's, you know, peace and love here. It's not that I'm hating on anybody. It's just food for thought. Barb with Inspire Me 360, and I want to talk about migrating timelines, and as you essentially ascend into higher dimensional realities, some of the things that you will experience in this shifting. And again, I am wearing my own yoga line, super cute. It's called Eternal Beauty. So we're going to be selling those online as well up here in the next couple months. I've always loved fashion, so we are bringing out a fashion line as well. Not that that's relevant to this stuff at all, but anyways, I'm excited about it. So I am wearing one of my little creations this morning. So in terms of sensitivity, as we move into a greater frequency of light information that we are bringing into our vehicle, when we think about the density of the body that we're existing in, the more dense it is, and the more that we are, in a sense, existing in the lower planes of consciousness. So you can think of this as the lower 3 chakra centers. It tends to be a more primitive, primal energy. So it is more based in survival. Not a lot of thought given to spirituality or helping others or the nature of the universe, those deep questions, when we are residing in these sort of lower centers. There is nothing wrong with existing in these more dense manifestations of reality. However, as we start to ascend, and one thing that I really noticed about my own journey is, again, when I was what I would term as sort of asleep or unawake or unaware of a lot of the energies around me, and really reading into the energies of others and understanding the complexity of our universe. Not to say that I understand it in its totality, but the more I am opened up to the realms beyond my five senses, the more extremely sensitive I also become to energy. And the reason I'm making this video is because there's sort of this dichotomy between, okay, I'm feeling a lot of reverence, I'm feeling a lot of compassion, I feel very spiritually elevated, and this is a really great thing. You know, my mind is expanding, all of these really deep, beautiful, love-filled concepts are entering my energy field, my consciousness. But why am I feeling so off balance? And that's what I want to really focus on in this video, is that it's not necessarily that you are off balance. It's that you are going through a complete energy transformation shift. So it is so different from the way that you were before that it is going to feel very unbalanced, and it's going to feel very unsettling, and you're going to feel extremely sensitive to everything. And the reason why this is because your body systems, your energy body systems, are integrating a huge amount of spiritual information, and you're able to now hold a lot more of the light and love within your actual light body than you previously were capable of. So you can almost kind of think of it as a video game. You're getting to the next level, which is amazing, but think of it like this as well. You actually don't know what's going to happen in the next level. It is a new adventure. And part of that is, with the video game analogy, is that when you get to this level, you're going to have different tools and different powers, so to speak, than you did in your previous level. And you're probably not quite used to utilizing those upgrades that you've just been given. So what this hypersensitivity is that can feel extremely ungrounding is this opening up of the totality of your perceptive abilities. So it does level you up. It allows you to read the energy of an environment very, very well, and in a different way than have read the energy from the lower, more dense centers. Because remember, when we're in the lower three chakras and we're existing and conceiving from that survival mode, we are seeing everything as essentially an attack or a fight that we have to go through to survive. And there's not a lot of love elements in that Darwinian way of thinking. It is kill or be killed. You know, everything is an attack. Maybe there is times to rest where your body is recuperating, but you're always on guard. And again, this is part of the body that we've been given. We've been given a body that is always ready to pounce or to run or to whatever it is, because we needed to have that to ensure the survival of our species, the survival of our young. But as we move into a consciousness where we're creating within our own species an ability to sustain ourselves and then rise up via the heart center. So again, that division between the lower center and the higher centers of thinking is the heart. The heart is really that gateway that opens up our perception to what we would call the more divine ways of thinking. And the heart center being the vortex or the emanation of light, love energy, the green ray energy, okay? And so as we learn to open up our hearts and we learn to, again, we don't want to discount the lower energy centers. They are important. We are in a physical body, and so we still need to pay attention to what's happening from a more primal level. But we can also utilize the wisdom of the heart, which is where we have compassion, where we can, see unconditional love, where we can find extreme peace. And it essentially, the heart center is the peacemaker between the lower centers and that opening up towards more divine thinking and a higher level of thinking. So in terms of the equilibrium of balance, as we're going through our spiritual ascension journey, we will feel usually a tremendous amount of anxiety and instability. It's because old patterns are being discontinued. The patterning that allowed us to reside in a very primitive, primal state of being, that mentality, the programs that are running within us are becoming obsolete because one can't exist in the other realm. The higher realms do not function through and by the laws of the lower centers. So as we are maneuvering the equilibrium of our bodies, which is transmuting into more of a light body, as we go through this ascension, we have to allow those things to fall away. And the programming, it's kind of like they bump the new programming and the old programming are trying to find a way to synthesize and make peace with each other within your consciousness, because we're in a really interesting point in terms of human evolution where we are, yes, very much still a three-dimensional material body that we are operating from, and yet so many individuals, so many souls on planet Earth are going through this transformational process into this light body. And there's a great book that I read when I was very young about this, I want to say it correctly, but it's the Celestial Prophecies. I'm probably butchering that. I read it a really long time ago. I'll figure out exactly what the book is, but there's a movie about it as well. And it's an old kind of 80s movie, but it explains it really, really well about how this process works and how we start to read into energy. So I found this happened almost exactly like the book for me, where when I am around any kind of material matter, I really can understand it and almost communicate with it, much more so in terms of matter that is alive or living. Misconception that a lot of people make as well is that they think that, a chair or a desk or something like that is not, that it has no living aspect to it. But you have to remember that all matter has an energy signature, and a chair was once a tree, and so it does have a sort of soul memory to it, and it does give off a vibration, even if it is not necessarily what we would deem as fully alive. There is still an energy signature that it carries around, and it still does have a remembrance within its structure of being that tree. So I know, again, to a lot of people this is going to sound like a little bit out there, and I'm only teaching it as I have experienced it. So again, don't kill the messenger. It's just the way that I perceive the world, and so therefore I'm sharing it. Now, in terms of, I have a couple notes here. So again, you would find that what I found when I was younger and very unaware and unawakened, that nothing really bothered me. I wasn't sensitive to much. I could see a lot of chaos and devastation and violence or whatever it would be, and I could be around very chaotic energies, and it really didn't faze me, as I really wasn't reading into their energy, and my energy was very muted as well, because I was probably, in terms of frequency, existing at a much lower vibrational frequency myself. So there was nothing about that out manifestation that made me feel uncomfortable. But as I cleared out my own consciousness, and as I did the deep dives, the work that I did on myself, I became increasingly more sensitive. And that would be, you know, if I was out in a restaurant and there was a lot of chaos around me, a lot of low vibrational conversations, if I could feel the emanation of the other individuals, and I could really read into their auric fields and feel whatever darkness was still residing. And especially if there was a lot of darkness in a particular area or a particular venue, it would become very overwhelming for my system. And so therefore, I became highly sensitive to it. Another example of this would be, you know, if I'm sitting in traffic and I can tell that around me, there's a lot of very frustrated, very sort of angry energy emanating from a lot of the individuals around me. I feel that very acutely in my system. And what I've started to realize is that that anxiety that's coming out of nowhere is actually me reading into the energies of sort of the culmination of what's around me and what's around my auric field, and might be kind of being transmuted to me. That gives me a lot of peace. It allows me to realize that it's not myself that is uncomfortable. It is that there are others that are not as awakened, that are in very low vibrational states. And how I know this is when I get out into nature, if I get away from the city and there's not a lot of concrete and chaos around, I never have those feelings pop out of nowhere. I'm just pervasively peaceful, and not just peaceful, but immense amount of joy, like joy and bliss. And it doesn't come from anything other than just myself communing with the natural world, which is very peaceful, which is very balanced and in tune, and following all of the laws of creation. So that's how I've been able to, again, as you know, a little mini scientist or an observer, I really take mental notes about all of the different experiences I have and try to figure out, why is this? You know, why am I feeling this way? Let's look at the environment. Let's look at what's happening in this instance, and then, you know, benchmark it to, you know, this situation over here. And there, you know, also look at what foods am I eating? Am I eating very high quality foods that are high vibrational? That's another conversation as well, is as you travel along this ascension path, you are extremely sensitive to anything that is chemical based, anything that is overly synthesized. I have to eat very raw, organic food. I eat a lot of greens, mostly vegetarian as much as I possibly can. I'm not overly preachy in it because, again, I think that it speaks for itself. My diet and the way that my body functions, I have unlimited energy, and for my age, it's not typical. And I definitely would correlate my extreme amount of happiness, joy, vivaciousness, unlimited energy, great ability to create, and like super high speed informational transfer abilities. I am able to recall information very, very quickly. I never have any brain fog in terms of speaking. There's just a million benefits for me that I've seen from going into this raw, predominantly raw, vegetarian, vegan diet. Now, I do know that in terms of protein, daily protein, I do need to sub in some eggs and cheese sometimes, because I am slightly hypoglycemic. I don't need to get into that. I'm sure you guys don't care about that. But anyways, I wanted to just bring that up in terms of feeling like you can be going through a spiritual awakening, but it almost feels worse than how you existed before. So there is a concept that ignorance is bliss. And to some regard, or in some regard, that's true. I have many times post awakening, because I've had many spiritual awakenings, wished for the days where I just was not aware of any of these things, when I didn't even question the world, where I could, you know, watch. I remember being a kid and watching like WWF and like monster trucks and thinking that was cool, and just, not that there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying I was definitely on an intellectual level just kind of blind to everything, and everything was fun and funny, and you know, I could eat a million Cheetos and gummy bears, and you know, it didn't matter, right? And as you move into this consciousness, as you understand the whole scope of the system, it can be a little bit daunting, and it can throw you off balance, because once again your heart chakra is open and you understand that, okay, that McDonald's burger probably means that a lot of innocent animals were treated not very kindly in factory farms, and actually I can't align with that. Actually, my heart wants every being to have a blissful experience. So you start to make these decisions that are heart-centered instead of from an unawakened state. But it can be daunting, it can be overwhelming when you are seeing, when your eyes are open, when you actually have eaten from the tree of knowledge and you see behind the curtain at what actually exists to make the world go round, and maybe it isn't as beautiful a place as you previously just didn't even pay attention to. And what happens inside of you is now there is this call to lift everything to a higher standard, to create an unconditionally loving place for all of humanity, and actually all life itself. But then that becomes a bit of a daunting task. So you become a lot more highly sensitive and this sensitivity, you will find that it's sensitivity to other people, sensitivity to people's problems, their emotional problems. You will take on more of their emotional residual ripple effect. So if you are around somebody that is highly emotional, or if there's a lot of chaos in somebody's life, you'll realize and recognize that it takes much more of an effect on you. This is because at the higher realms, in the upper densities, the energy transference is much more wide open. Now, these higher realms, the fourth, the fifth, and higher dimensional realities, there's a reason for this. It's because once you kind of open the gateway to this, there must be a lot of light and love to even reside in this informational, energetic reality. So you wouldn't even be able to perceive it if you didn't have the capabilities of sustaining that vibration within yourself. But we're in a transition period where we still have one foot in the old world and one foot in the new world, and we don't really understand the new world yet, and yet the old world feels very foreign to us because we have transformed enough so that we can perceive the new world. So this new wave of sensitivity, it's real, it's palpable, it is uncomfortable. So what we're asked to do as spiritual beings is to hang in there and realize that we are all in this together. We are all going through this together, and the way that we can move seamlessly into these higher vibrational realities is through consistent compassion for oneself, consistent compassion for the others in our lives, and support. When we support each other through unconditional love, through dialogue, through speaking. Again, the throat chakra is so powerful because when we're using our words to articulate the information that's coming through to us and sharing that out into the quantum field, that is also extremely powerful. And it is part of that love energy. To be speaking your truth is in accordance with divine. And so, again, if you are feeling a lot of chaos in the energies lately, that is part of what we're all going through. I'm feeling it as well. And there are things that you can definitely do about that chaos. Just, again, set your boundaries, cocoon yourself. If you need to step away from environments that feel overwhelming, then do so. If you have to learn to say no to certain people and certain things, do so. Utilize your truth. Trust yourself, trust your intuition. If your intuition is saying that, doing something, going to a certain place is giving you anxiety, follow that gut feeling and say no. One of the things we have to do, and one of the most beautiful gifts we give ourselves as we ascend into these higher dimensional realities, is the absolute ability to trust yourself and to love yourself. And as you expand this loving energy for the self and the trust for the self, you will find that, again, you'll become a more powerful creator. You'll become a more stabilized individual just through the mechanism of self-love and setting those boundaries. So wishing you all a very, very beautiful Friday, and I will be making a few other videos this weekend. But for now, just enjoy your weekend. Overwhelm is a feeling that we all get from time to time, and I want to talk about some of the reasons that you can be going through this sort of really pervasive feeling of being overwhelmed when you might not even realize where it's coming from. Because I've really noticed there's periods in my life where I can handle a lot of stress really, really easily, and it's like things just bounce off me. And then there's times in my life where I become extremely overwhelmed and there's really not that much pressure being applied. So to give you a little bit of insight into what I've noticed in terms of when I'm going through a period of real transformation, it tends to be coupled with a lot of feelings of being overwhelmed. And part of what I feel this is about is that when you're shedding your skin, in essence, when you are moving from a former version of yourself into this newly upgraded version of yourself, which happens to us over and over in different seasons of our lives. Essentially, the old version of you is becoming overwhelmed with the new upgraded version of yourself, because you're sort of dancing between two separate people in a sense. Because when you are letting old patterns die, when you're moving into a new era of being, some of the coping strategies and some of the ways that you may have dealt with things previously are no longer available to you, or are part of, or basically are not part of how you are coping in terms of this new version of self. So that can lead to a lot of feelings of overwhelm. And I'm going to use a relevant example for this, okay? So let's say that previously you had dealt with stress and problems by, say, going out and drinking with friends. And in a way, you were always able to handle things with that set of coping mechanisms. And if you were going to be moving into an era of your life where you are going to be dealing with things at face value, using no external kind of anything externally to dull your emotions, and now you're walking this path where, again, you are just facing everything head on, you might feel the experience of being extremely overwhelmed with what you're dealing with, because you're dealing with everything in real time instead of deferring to, say, an old version of yourself that might have gravitated to taking an easy way out, or again, dulling some of the experience. And so the reason that I'm making this video is because I really want you to pay attention to what you've upgraded in terms of your own personal experience, your identity, and the way that you're moving throughout not only your relationships, but how you're showing up in the world. Another example of this, another great example of this, is learning to set boundaries and learning to say no. So if you were a person in the past that didn't set really clear boundaries and really had a trouble with saying no to others, when you're integrating this new version of yourself, you can find this transition period extremely overwhelming, because again, you're getting your footing on becoming that new version of yourself. And again, this is just an example. I'm not saying that these two examples that I'm speaking about would or would not be the reason for you being overwhelmed. But anytime that I'm teaching, I like to bring it back to some sort of applicable example so that it's not just talking about an experience. We can kind of relate it back to something that is actually happening in reality. And in terms of upgrading, so when we're talking about how much pressure you can handle in terms of daily life and, you know, your view of yourself, because again, everything kind of boils down to our own personal experience and how we are really viewing ourselves in terms of our position and our place in the world and what we're accomplishing. So when we are going through a period of feeling extremely overwhelmed or feeling that there is a lot of pressure in our life, it's really important for us to also understand and step back and not be too extremely hard on ourselves. Because if you are in a period of feeling overwhelmed, feeling like life is kind of dragging you down, and then you are layering frustrations that are coming and stemming from your own consciousness onto that feeling of being overwhelmed, you're really just adding fuel to the fire. So it's really important that to kind of create this equilibrium in terms of your own mental stability and just your experience in day-to-day life, that you take the time to really sit back and appreciate yourself. There is nothing more important in terms of things that you can give to yourself than self-love. And what I mean by this is just really taking the time to look at your accomplishments, the things that you bring to the world, the light that you are. And sometimes, again, when we are perfectionistic, when we are our own worst critics, this can be extremely difficult to do. But it is an essential part of the spiritual process and are working towards ascension, if you're working towards really raising your vibration, part of that equation is a very grounded semblance of self-love. And that means that you have to appreciate yourself. You have to give yourself time. You have to give yourself space to actually be. And that can be extremely hard in our frantic everyday lives in the world that we live right now, but it is a crucial part not only of spiritual practice, but if we're just talking at a fundamental 3D level in terms of your mental health, you need to work on self-love. Nobody is ever going to get to that peaceful state in their life if they are not taking that journey. And again, it's a day by day, minute by minute, hour by hour practice of stabilizing your thought patterns into a sequence of self-love. And when you are giving this love to yourself, when you're appreciating who and what you are and what you bring to the world, it becomes infinitely more effortless to love the external world, to love the people, situations, obstacles, lessons, everything around you, when you are basically filling your own cup. Because it is not the world's obligation necessarily to build you up and fill you up. You need to be able to give that aspect to yourself, and that needs to spring from that internal source of self-generating unconditional love. And this brings me back to one of my favorite topics, which is unconditional love. You have to love yourself. You have to be the one that is your loudest, biggest cheerleader. And certainly you're going to have people on the outside that are going to challenge you, that are not necessarily going to build you up, that may criticize you. And sometimes that criticism is healthy. It's things that you want to look at and pay attention to. But you can't let the external world bring you down or dampen the light that you are. And every single human being, every single life form, every single animal, plant that's on the planet has this specialness about them. And again, it's when we take the time to honor the sacredness of life, when we take the time to honor the sacred journey and the experience of living, and we slow down even in the midst of chaos. I mean, I want to be really clear, my day has been extremely chaotic today. I had a flood going on, happening from the ceiling. I had to rearrange a whole bunch of classrooms. I had lots of management meetings, and it can feel extremely overwhelming. Almost like Chicken Little, the sky is falling, which piece do I grab first? But I still took a moment to slow down, give myself a pat on the back, say, you know what, you're doing this, it's amazing. You're feeling a little bit of overwhelm, and again, feeling overwhelmed can also present itself like anxiety, because again, you start feeling like there's all of these balls in the air. Which one am I going to focus on? Where am I going to juggle this? Where am I going to juggle that? And there's not enough of me to go around. Doesn't matter what position you're playing in life. If you are a parent, if you are a boss, if you're an employee, maybe you're struggling with mental health issues, maybe you're struggling with external factors, money, whatever it is. There's a lot of things that can become overwhelming in life. But the first and foremost, most important thing that you need to do is turn it back around, love yourself, be your biggest cheerleader. Don't have a negative internal dialogue when you're feeling overwhelmed that is going to derail you, because that inner voice needs to be pervasively positive. You need to be circling back around and saying, you know what, you're awesome, you've got this, you can handle this, you know what, it's not overwhelming, you're going to be okay. And when you can start to talk to yourself in these ways, you will start to notice that you just naturally calm down and you start to feel extremely grounded, and you actually continually up your capacity for what you can handle, and you'll make yourself extremely proud of yourself if you start to do and to look at life in this way. So again, I'm not going to make this a super long video because I've got to get back to work, but just wanted to say again, if you are feeling overwhelmed, you're not alone. Life can be a little bit overwhelming, but take it in strides, calm down, give yourself a pat on the back. Don't integrate negative thought patterns. Don't talk to yourself negatively. Be your biggest cheerleader. Build yourself up. Take time to build others up around you, because again, when you are pushing forward with that positive spirit and really making everything about that high vibrational energy, you will move through any anxiety and any aspect of feeling overwhelmed quite smoothly, and you get to the other end, and before you know it, you're at the end of the day and you are enjoying a nice walk in the park. So anyways, have a great one, and I will see you in the next video.